So I was excited to, being from Iowa and all, I was excited to get invited out here to the East Coast. I understand there are 3 significant events going on the East Coast this weekend. One of them is the inauguration. The second most popular event on the East Coast this weekend is in Gillette Stadium, where my Patriots are going to put a shellacking on the Steelers. Okay, that was about a 50-50 boos and cheers. And then ultimately, the number one event going on here this weekend is clearly recognition of Paul Litcher tonight. I'm asking for a little bit of help up here to recognize Paul. Could my friends from the undergrad chapter at Stevens come forward, please? And then also Rob Cross. Could you please come forward, Rob? And then also Steve Buse, come on up, Steve, and Mike Sheff. Actually, all the brothers at this table with Paul, could you all please come up here too? Uncle Billy had to know that SigEp would not work without volunteers like Paul Litcher. Paul is a creator. From alumni events to staff recognition dinners, to resurrecting chapters, to this crazy thing called nuts. It isn't good enough for Paul to just follow the lead of others. Paul Litcher is a SigEp inventor. As an undergrad at the Indiana Institute of Technology, Paul did it all. Vice president, historian, parliamentarian, Brotherhood Development chairman, Rush chairman, academic chairman, and conclave delegate twice. As an Indiana Ada alumnus, Paul has sponsored over 10 undergrads to attend conclave. He's raised money for the chapter and has donated generously his own money. Indiana Ada brothers still rely on Paul as a mentor. As Brandon Haynes, an alumnus of Indiana Ada and current AVC member, observed, Paul is one of those guys that has cemented himself as the go-to alumnus for a multitude of things. He is definitely the first one we reach out to when we don't know who else to call. His dedication and commitment are inspiring and daunting, and he's one of my personal mentors and idols. Paul has served on 6 AVCs in a variety of roles: president, treasurer, secretary, balance man steward at St. John's, Hofstra, Stony Brook, Adelphi, Columbia, NYU, and Stevens Institute of Technology. The last 2 he remains active with. And Paul has had his hands in the pot of at least something related to Pennsylvania Delta, Connecticut Alpha, Connecticut Epsilon, Pennsylvania Beta Beta, and allegedly some chapter in Kentucky. He is the lieutenant governor for District 3. Brother Steve Buse, who is treasurer of the New Jersey Alpha AVC, worked closely with Paul to recharter and build a thriving RLC at Stevens. Steve said, thanks to Paul's outgoing personality, it seems like Paul has met and remembered everybody on the local, regional, and national level. He is our walking and talking version of SigEp LinkedIn. For almost 20 years, Paul organized and hosted New York, New Jersey alumni gatherings, making them must-attend events for many brothers. Past SigEp executive director and foundation head Chuck White once called Paul's creation the longest-running Founders Day celebration in the country. Over 600 SigEp brothers representing 75 chapters nationwide have attended. The 1901 Club of New York City continues Paul's tradition today. Paul also organizes a New York City Metro Regional Director Staff Appreciation Dinner each spring to celebrate the local regional directors' efforts. And then there's the Nuts Society. The McAuliffe Society, named after SigEp brother General Anthony Nuts McAuliffe from West Virginia Beta. There we go. Commanding officer at the Battle of the Bulge in World War II, the setting for the TV series Band of Brothers. Paul is a co-founder and past brigadier general, and in the process carved out his own Secretary of War position that he continues to fill to this day, collecting dues, maintaining the membership roster, and communicating with members, all to provide scholarships so undergrads can experience conclave. Paul has helped the group raise over $100,000, and in 2015, the Nuts sent 27 undergraduates to conclave. And if that wasn't enough, Paul has donated very generously to the National Fraternity. Paul's awards are too many to mention, but here are just a few. Distinguished Alumnus Award, 1997. Volunteer Excellence Award in 2000, and 2008, and 2013. New Jersey Alpha Alumni Wall of Fame, 2015, and now he becomes only the 6th recipient of the Exemplary Service Award in the entire nation. Everyone loves Paul Litcher. Everybody loves Paul Litcher. He gives more of his life to SigEp than virtually any other volunteer. He sets the standard for thankless volunteering, doing grunt work, detail work that no one else will do. Recently, the Nuts raised about $30,000 for the new Keefe House in Richmond. Our goal was $25,000, and I'm the guy that sent out the email to encourage the dollars out of people. And then, of course, people started responding. And they responded for more money, and then it hit me that this is going to be a lot of work. I'd have to get names, amounts pledged, who paid, who didn't pay, shake people down for money. So I'm trying to squeeze this money out of everybody in the Nuts Society, and what happens? On the white horse comes Paul Litcher. He had all the accounting done and was prepared to do all the dirty work, just like that. He wasn't asked, he just knew he was the guy who would get it right. And he did. We raised nearly $35,000 rather than $25,000 because of Paul. Without his help, we wouldn't have pulled it off. That is who Paul Litcher is. John Stumpf, longtime Evansville volunteer and past brigadier general for the Nuts Society, says Brother Paul, while never expecting anything in return, gives guidance to make others successful. He is the true example of virtue, diligence, and brotherly love. Past staffer Rob Cross said that Paul was his rock star and his best volunteer. Rob Cross refers to Paul as his everything when he was working with the East Coast. Another past Nuts Brigadier General, Paul's good friend Columbus Johnson, calls Paul the hardest working volunteer in SigEp. And SigEp CEO Brian Warren calls Paul the quintessential servant leader who, despite all he's done, will never claim the spotlight for himself, and that this celebration is long overdue. Well, today we are finally forcing the spotlight on a brother who would never shine it on himself, and we show our appreciation for a brother who exemplifies diligence like no other brother. Our Exemplary Service Award recipient, Brother Paul Litcher.
Actually. I can't believe that some of the brothers flew in from California and Iowa, and Brother Everly coming in from Illinois. Unbelievable. Thank you, Brother Barton, for your kind introduction. I also want to thank my sister, Barbara, my brother Edward, and his wife, Barbara, for sharing this special night with me. It is an honor to be in the company of my fellow awardees both this year and last year, as I've worked with many of them throughout my time as a volunteer. There's a quote that once hung in my grandmother's house, and it hangs now in mine. Its title is But Once, and it says, I shall pass through this world but once. Any good thing, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any human being, let me do it now, for I shall not pass this way again. When my family came to the New World in 1902, this quote became a guiding philosophy on how they'd live their lives here in the New World. once established in New York City, building wheels for the ice delivery trucks. They helped others come across, settling in New Jersey, oh my God, here, as farmers. My grandmother did her part to help those who came after her. My parents did the same, especially when my neighbor's house caught on fire. They invited them to come live with us until the house could be rebuilt. I like to think my family legacy is investing time, talents, and money to help others. I continue to believe that we as SigEps should be guided by this quote, for it embraces our cardinal principle of brotherly love. The investment of your time, your talents, your gifts, and philosophy is a philosophy of Sigma Phi Epsilon. This is our cardinal principle of brotherly love. This is the heart of our development program, especially the Brother Mentor Challenge. This is why we volunteer. I would not be here tonight if SigEp volunteers had not invested their time, talents, and money to guide me. My SigEp journey started during the spring of 1985 with Robert Swindell, our faculty advisor, who convinced my parents that joining a fraternity would not kill me or hurt my grades. Well, one happened. Then Robert Marshall, our chapter counselor, whenever he found out about the latest great idea that was just a mask for hazing, stopped it in its tracks. Bob and Bob taught me that SigEp values are not measured by drinking or hurting each other. That summer, Bob, and chapter president Michael Filerski decided to make me the delegate at the San Antonio conclave. Their investment in me was their belief that I represented the future leadership of our chapter. That change allowed me to meet Order of the Golden Heart Brothers, Wally Dowd, Frank Ruck, and Truman Sandy Sanderson, all volunteers whose different fraternity SigEp experience greatly expanded my vision of fraternity. From the local, how good are we compared to our competition and campus, to the national perspective of how good are we compared to our fellow brothers and our entire generation. Wally Dowd taught me that at a fraternity function, even very successful leaders in business, he was a senior vice president of IBM, are just brothers. That alums want to hear what young undergraduates think SigEp should be and just share our common bond. Frank Ruck taught me that SigEp always needs to look into the future, remember our principles, and change with the times. Truman Sandy Sanderson started as a member of the Theta Epsilon Omega, a 9-chapter fraternity that merged with SigEp in 1938, which became our Mass Beta chapter, which is a group still here tonight. It's alive around and still going. Sandy taught me that no matter how different the fraternity becomes from your undergraduate days, supporting the undergrads is worth your time, effort, and investment. Sandy also taught me about standards. During our talks, he often quoted his friend Ulysses Grant Dubois saying, "You can't carve rotten wood. You just have to have high standards, recruit based on them, and hold each other to them." Meeting each of these extraordinary alums helped me develop a vision for the future of my chapter, which allowed Indiana Ada to win our first Buchanan Cup in 1989. Since graduating, I have tried to provide the same support to others as is provided to me. I've worked with small groups of students to start and restart chapters from scratch, and helped already established 80-plus man chapters decide that this fraternity will be different and go on to win multiple Buchanan Cups as a result of that choice. My willingness to make a lifetime investment has given me the privilege to watch numerous young undergraduates become men and leaders. Conclave was such an inspiration to me that as an undergraduate, I also give back through, as Tom has already mentioned, the Anthony Nuts McAuliffe Society. This group of SigEp volunteers, not just brothers, helps keep SigEp fun for me even today. I have been amazed at some of the undergraduate leaders I have worked with and the paths they have forged for themselves in life. Two examples are Seth Weingarten, who went from undergraduate president to a project manager at a plumbing company, today serving as the VP of Network Technologies as National Cable Communications Company. He's managing satellite farms, among other things. A person who never even studied IT as an undergraduate. And Steve Hofstra, who became a student national board of director of our fraternity. Then he decided to do a change, started working the comedy circuit, warming up the crowd and introducing the acts. So one day he became the headliner, especially on the comedy circuit. He may well have performed in some of your campuses. He also owns multiple comedy clubs and produces a comedy show for Fox TV. He also recently just appeared in a movie for the Hallmark Channel. That's just a few of his accomplishments over the years he has shared with me. Anthony Robbins once said that life is a gift, and it offers us the privilege, opportunity, and responsibility to give something back by becoming more. I hope you all take Anthony Robbins' words to heart and in return grow in ways you never would have imagined through your commitment to this great fraternity. Seth and Steve's lifetime path is the side of fraternity that I as a volunteer enjoy the most, sharing the journey. I and my fellow awardees have loved this voyage of the heart. I want to thank the National Board of Directors for this tremendous honor. I look forward to seeing you along this great journey we call SigEp, for surely it's far from the end. Safe travels home.